Hello and welcome to part three of Betting People with Joe O'Gorman. Now, in this part, we're going to look at how Joe makes some of his opinions and essentially how he does his job, and hopefully get a few good explainers in there for you. So, with that in mind, Joe, how do you go about pricing up a standard dog race?
Even though I have done odds compiling for other firms in the past, Coles and Blue Squares, especially help them out on their open race circuit with dogs. Obviously, I was a decent judge at the dogs and knew how to price a race up. How would I look at it? I mean, obviously, it's great to have a local knowledge of those dogs anyway. I've always been one, like a lot of good judges, think the draw is very important. So there'll be lots of factors into pricing up a dog race. What I used to go about it is I'd like to find the outsider first. Work out if the outsider was really a 6 or 7 to 1 chance or whether it was double figures. Then you may look at the favourite, you fill in between, and then you think, no, the favourite still looks too big and lengthen a few of the others. Or you look at it and go, no, I don't think the public will back the favourite with that type of draw. Run poorly last few times out. A lot of people don't like looking at times, but I would, because I think a lot of the general public do. So lots of ways to price up a dog race, but to do it well, you'd have to know the dogs. It's a big advantage to know the dogs really well. And as for pricing up a horse race, William, I don't really myself. I don't even think we did back in the day. We'd follow a couple of old-time bookies that were very good judges. You send the staff out to get their prices, someone you respected. You'd come back and you'd price up from there. Nowadays, as you know and the public know, we open our laptops and the markets have already been opened for 24, 48 hours on some races. So generally, the bones have been picked out of it, and it's there for us there and then. I mean, we form opinions, bookies. Not all bookies do. I do a little bit of a study up before I go, very basic, based on some figures and speed ratings that the great Colin Webster got me into, big Rouse layer. He introduced me to these figures, and another couple of colleagues knew that I was interested and talked me through it. So they've been a bit of a guide to me, but rather than help me price up a race with it, more than likely helps me try to guess which way the market's going to go, which is important for us on course, really.
No, absolutely. And just on figures and your opinion, you're somebody who plenty of people tell me has a very good sense of being judged, is backs their own judgment, but also somebody who's very good with their figures. How do you combine the two? And would you be, in some situations, more inclined to just back your guts and back your own opinions, or would you be happier to let the figures dictate what you should be doing, or is it changeable depending on the situation?
Yeah, that's the point, William. It is very changeable depending on the situation. If you're midweek somewhere, like I mentioned before, it can be a bit quiet. You may want to try and make things happen. By trying enticing a few people in by pulling the favourite or second favourite or going against a couple of eggs, whatever your opinion may be.
So just following on from that, you're somebody who's known to be a good judge, but also somebody who uses figures heavily. Will you generally tend to lean to backing your opinion more often, or will you tend to try and follow the figures more often than not?
On the busy days, William, we'd like to think that the figures would just take care of themselves, and you've got an overround on the board and you've got a weight of turnover, which is good enough to really say it warrants paying the expenses for that day. We have such ridiculous expenses some days at some of these festival meetings. I mean, we talked earlier about affordability checks. I mean, I think I'll be giving myself a few affordability checks before I pull up the money for these rents and betting badges at places like Royal Ascot and Cheltenham. Obviously, it's worth paying because you do go to, but they are increasing year in, year out, and our turnover does go down. But to answer your your question, yeah, I think on the quieter days, you probably have got figures on the board, but it's very quiet, so you've got to try and make a few little things happen. That's why sometimes midweek, like people should come racing. The betting ring can be very competitive still. You know, we're all chasing the buck, and we all want to try and take money and keep our turnover up to warrant the expenses for that day. So it's a bit of both, really.
And just to go back down memory lane a bit, if you could go back to the start of your time as a layer, sort of knowing what you do now, would you do anything differently?
Yeah, good question. As I mentioned earlier, I learned a lot of Harlow, so I think what I learned there would probably, because I didn't come from the strongest of laying backgrounds. I mean, my dad and granddad weren't known as big layers; they were known as fair in their time. And Dad was quite lucky to have the reputation of always being a main ring Walthamstow layer. So
Mm.
he wasn't particularly an absolute fiddler, as they say. But I'd have liked to have been brave enough to stick by my opinion a little bit stronger when I had the chance to. When back in the day when turnover was great, probably tried to hedge that a little bit less. Again, that's probably ingrained a little bit into me by my father and grandfather. Um, yeah, I mean, another thing I learned from Harlow once was it was reported in Muttley's column in the Racing Post one. I think it used to come in the weekend issue, that I'd been lucky enough to win two of the jackpots at Harlow. I think it was a £5 pot and a £4 pot, and I think it was along the lines of saying, "Oh, Joe was a judge at Walthamstow. He's quickly learned to be a judge at Harlow." But I remember when I won the first pot of £5, I didn't realise Dave Barkley, the owner of the track, the promoter of the track, was standing next to me. And when the dog went clear around the second or third bend, I gave it a little bit of a holler and said, "Barkley, get it ready, like 50s will do." And I didn't know he was standing right next to me, so that didn't go down too well. And to teach me a lesson, a couple of races later, Barkley came into the ring and said, "I've had it with you bookmakers. There's no more hedging amongst yourselves. You know, you've got to be braver. You've got to take a bet." Well, we all took a bet anyway. It was a ridiculous statement. But I think two races later after that, I did lay a 2,000 to 1 a winner. And Barkley was in the ring, or a few of his spies were checking that I didn't hedge it. So I quickly got my bum bitten straight back, really. So that was another lesson then. Don't scream home winners in front of the owner of the track.
And speaking of some other lessons, we're coming to the end of this Running People, and I'm sure it's been really beneficial to everybody who's watched it. Um, you've been in the game a long time. Are there any rules that you like to stick by, whether it be mostly as a layer or if you're dabbling in punting a little bit as well?
Well, I don't really punt heavily these days at all. It's more recreational. Back in the day, the dogs, when I had an edge and you could get on, and I thought I knew a little bit more than the odds compilers. Yeah, I'd have a decent bet. I think laying a lot of principles are still there. I think if you were punting, as we touched on before, you've got to gamble responsibly. Don't chase your money. That can also roll over to the bookmaking side of it. I've never really been one that that gets on the chase and gambles. For example, you may be out of a day and the first four favourites are won and you feel you're getting out lightly. You may stand the fifth and sixth through a little bit more because you feel really I should be doing more than this if you look on paper. So some of that comes into it. I've always been one that if I've fallen with a horse or a dog at top price, I always want to lay it on the way down. You know, a good friend of mine, another great layer with the dogs, Ronnie Bazell, used to love that. He used to love overstanding a dog that he thought he was getting at the bottom price. So, and again, that that rolls over. If there was a tipster I was particularly following, or horse I was following in some type of tracker that I'd put up, if I missed the price, I wouldn't back it at particularly a lower price. You know, I've missed the price, especially if you're punting in what I would probably call level stakes. And as I said, you know, if I've laid a top price, I want to make sure I laid a bottom price, even though if I have to stand it for that little bit more, we call it averaging it out. So that's something that's been ingrained in me. So that's probably the only time I ever really have to overstand something, is when I've fallen with it and I want to average it out.
I think that's a really good way to end what has been an absolutely brilliant Betting People. Thank you very much for your time, Joe Gorman.
Thank you, William. Thank you to Ben. Thank you to everyone.
And thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for another great guest next week.